and welcome to Your Right to Know by the Fitchburg Republican City Committee. My name is Mary Lotze, and I'm joined tonight by my fabulous co-host, Andrew Couture. Andrew, how are you? And Happy New Year to everybody.
Thank you, Mary. Happy New Year to all of our viewers.
And, of course, happy Inauguration Day.
Very happy Inauguration Day, yes. So we have a very interesting guest here tonight.
We certainly do.
So tonight, our topic is, first of all, we want to introduce our guest, Atty. St.Pierre. He's a district representative for Turning Points USA's college program. And so, good evening, Anthony. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Welcome to Your Right to Know. Many of us active Republicans and those following the conservative movement in America know of Charlie Kirk, and they've heard of Turning Points USA, but there might be some in our viewing audience who just don't follow politics as closely as we do, and perhaps have never heard of Charlie Kirk or Turning Points USA. Do you want to introduce yourself and introduce what Turning Point USA is?
Well, yeah, absolutely. So with Turning Point USA, what we are is we are one of the largest grassroots movement for youth conservatism. So what we do is we're present on over 3,500 college and high school campuses where we want to keep spreading conservative values in order to grow the movement. So with that, Charlie was able to start this up in 2012 following the re-election of President Obama because he clearly saw that there was a lack of movement or even a focus on conservatism within the youth group. So with that, he built, and with that, we've made such a successful organization. We have multiple conferences every year. He has a heavy presence on campuses with his tours, and we see that in the political landscape too with the individuals who've come out and support the organization, including the current President Donald Trump. But also with that, we want to keep moving forward and ensuring that we can get these types of organizations on every campus in the country.
Excellent. Well, so it's nationwide. So Turning Point USA made an incredible mark on the election of Donald Trump and the conservative movement in November election. What did they do, and how did they do it?
Yeah, so with that, Turning Point USA being a 501c3, we're not explicitly involved with the party or particular candidates, but what we wanted to focus on for this election cycle is getting the youth out to actually do their civic duty and vote. So what we did is we mobilized on campuses with all of our chapters. Every rep on September 17th, that was National Voter Registration Day, we did something with one chapter, and that was just to mobilize and get individuals registered. We had over 1,500 students register on that day.
Wow.
So we wanted to ensure, and we're not looking specifically as to we only want people who are going to vote for one party. We wanted to just show people that this is important. These types of issues impact you on a daily basis, and you got to learn that this is coming eventually. So with that, we helped on that front, but with the election directly, I would attribute that really to Turning Point Action. It's one of our sister organizations that is a 501c4, so they delve directly into the political game. They did major door-knocking initiatives across the country. Some of the bigger ones were in Arizona and in Wisconsin, which we saw the direct impact of those in November. But otherwise, yeah, I think Turning Point as an overall organization had a good impact on this election cycle.
So Turning Point just had a 4-day convention, America Fest, is that correct?
Yeah.
And a rally in Phoenix. Were you there?
I was there, and the way I like telling people this and promoting it is it was like our Super Bowl. It's the biggest event of the year for conservatives, especially bringing all these youth together, whether that be from our high school chapters, college chapters, or just individuals who are interested in growing.
So not just the representatives of the high schools and colleges got there. You actually had some of the students from the schools themselves that got there.
Yeah, so we actually,
wow.
Yeah, we broke records for attendance this year. I believe it was over 20,000 tickets were sold for the arena in Phoenix there. So it was a great turnout, but what's great about it too is that you're seeing all these like-minded people come together to celebrate. And it doesn't just have to be on the election, but just celebrating our values, what we believe, and just not feeling, because we see this in New England, that you have to have a veil over. we can be open about our beliefs. And it was very exciting, and we're looking forward to the next conferences when those get announced soon.
Well, are you specifically just concentrating on colleges? Are you going into high schools?
Yeah, so we do have a high school program itself. So what we do is basically my job, but for high schools. We have a representative there. So we want to grow. We don't want to just be on a college campus. We want to be at the high school level too, because in my opinion, they're not too young to love your country. And I think teaching conservative values is very important, especially in that level, because we want to take away sort of negativity that comes with the idea of what a conservative is. There's nothing wrong with it, and when we teach individuals this, you can see that it makes an impact, and we actually have more in common than what people like to portray or label.
Well, it's refreshing to hear, because we always hear about the indoctrination in our learning institutes, high school, colleges. You know, it just seems like it's forbidden in any high school to talk conservative politics. Similar to that in college too. I graduated from Fitchburg State, and talking a conservative mind, you kind of have to hide in order to be able to even talk about that kind of stuff. And God forbid you should put it in a term paper or something like that. You're going to make sure that you get an F. Now, are you working in unions or anything like that, trying to expand?
Other young people working in groups of people, like union halls? Do you have outreach in different places like that?
Yeah, so we have outreach really everywhere, and our main focus with USA, we have the high school and the college atmosphere. That's what we're hitting with the youth there. But other opportunities we have, if we're not directly on a campus itself, is we call them activism hubs. So that's more of your community involvement if we're not getting chapters on schools. So that gives those youth opportunities to come together and grow within their community. I think it's important here, and I was able to speak at another event this past week where we want to see the mobilization, not just on a campus, but also building within our communities. So we have different groups who are like-minded here. The best way that you continue to gain momentum and see your movement flourish in your community is by coming together. Mobilizing is one. So we are never shy from going out into our community, and as the student leaders, we want to see them make an impact both on and off campus.
So what is your district? You are a field representative, district representative. What is your district?
Yeah, so with that, I cover 4 states in the upstate territory. Vermont, upstate New York, western Massachusetts, and then I believe northeastern Connecticut is how I describe it. But those 4 states, I believe, combine for 94 schools.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
So you're one busy man.
I try to be, yeah.
And what's the support like in Vermont? We all know that's Bernie Sanders' hotspot.
You would be surprised. There are students who are very interested in growing, and actually one in particular I would definitely love to brag about. He is at Vermont State University right now out in Montpelier, and he heard about America Fest, the conference. He drove the day before the event 41 hours from Montpelier, Vermont to Phoenix, Arizona to be at that event.
Wow.
Since then, we talk every week, and he is ecstatic about starting a chapter. So the movement is there. And I also think we're in a unique position being in New England, because unlike some of my reps in the South where you can go to a school and get 100 to 500 contacts in a day that are all conservative, with us you have people who can be nervous about expressing their beliefs, which we want to change. But I come at it this way. We're too polarized politically. I don't think that's a crazy statement to make. But in order to remove that polarization, we need to come together. And I think a campus is a perfect place for it. Because instead of looking at each other as you're either A or B, we need to remove that. We need to revert back to policy, ideals, beliefs, because you want to know what? That's not party specific. That's something we can talk about. I've never lived a day in the life of some of these students' shoes, so their experiences has shaped their beliefs. And with that, what I want to see is open dialogue. We want open-minded, like-minded students coming together, because the only way we're going to solve tomorrow's problems is by coming together today and doing it. So we want to take away, like I said, the negativity from that word conservative, because this is how we can actually get things done in our community. So not to go on a tangent, but that's...
So I think it's interesting because you're the college representative. There is a field representative in a different, little bit of a, the district is cut different because there's more high schools, obviously, than there are colleges.
Yeah.
What is the difference between going into schools and approaching college-age students, which would be, we'll say, 18 to 25, and high school students, which would be anywhere from 13 to 18 or 19? Is there a different approach that you have it divided that way?
I don't want to speak too much on the high school side of it because they probably have their entire system that they go off of. From my view of it, there's definitely a way in which you have to approach high school differently because you can't just walk onto a school property and be like, hey, I'm here to meet with your children and have a conversation, whereas on a college campus I can go and meet with the students directly, walk around, have conversations.
Sure.
So yeah, there are different approaches, but we do have the same goal, and that is to identify, to educate, empower engagement and mobilize these students to come together.
And teach them civics. In high school. I mean, we've talked about this on our show numerous times, that this is not oftentimes taught in public schools any longer.
Yeah.
When you consistently use the word conservatism, we're the Fitchburg Republican City Committee, obviously.
Right.
Now, but I don't have any sense that any of these people have strong party affiliations at this point. Are most of your enrollees or people who are interested unaffiliated or unenrolled voters?
Yes and no. We had people, especially during the fall here, with the voter registration efforts that we did, who would approach us and say, well, look, I'm a Democrat, or I lean more left. I look at them, I said, okay, so? Not to be rude or contrary to them, but just why does that change how we should have a conversation with each other?
Yeah.
So yeah, you have people who are very open about their support, who they like, or if they're like, I do not like politics at all. But even those ones who identify as Democrat or liberal, that is completely fine. I ask them questions. I say, well, do you like free speech? And they're like, yeah, I do. I'm like, all right, you like the Constitution if you've read it? They're like, yeah, I do like the Constitution. I'm like, okay. Limited government, how do you feel about that? Do you want government in your life at all times, or would you prefer if they kind of took a step back? I like limited government, yeah, that sounds good. I'm like, then why don't you belong here? Why don't you feel that because of a letter at the end of your name when you vote, that you can't come have a conversation with us or be a part of our group? We've had members even of the LGBTQ community. They sign up and come over. I think right there you're taking that negativity again right out of the picture.
Well, and I think what happens is LGBTQ, RD, we've become, what you said, polarized, that people have become siloed, and therefore they can't go anywhere else. They're now stuck in this sort of mentality all the time.
Right, yeah, and it's sad. And in my opinion, I believe the institutions are a part of that. I think they're taught as if you need to be separate. These are the values you need to hold, and you will hold. We have you for at least 18 years of your life, so we're going to teach you this way. And if you do not go with this, or if there's anyone who opposes the ideals we're teaching, then that is the enemy, unfortunately. And I don't like putting labels on that, but that's how these students feel because they have other views. They feel as if they're targeted, and we want to change that.
Yes.
I mean, as a father and a Republican, as a fellow conservative, I'm always concerned about groups that work in the high school and the colleges regarding their motivations.
Yep.
A while back in Fitchburg, there was a drive to get kids to sign up to vote.
Yes.
Which was, there were people there that were obviously on the left, and Mary took it upon herself to go up and give...
Two members of our Republicans went to the high school.
Right.
Just to kind of oversee and make sure that there was no appearance or any coercion involved.
Okay.
But, as I said, as a father, my two daughters they went to Catholic school, okay? But recently, my oldest daughter went to Fitchburg High, and I've definitely seen a little bit of a shift more towards a more liberal type of a stance in some areas, which is concerning, because she's going to go to college and, the indoctrination will continue. So, getting something in the local high schools and all the colleges, I find as extremely important. Is there a representative for the Boston area where you're really going to get pushback?
Yeah, and she has had actually tremendous success with getting it going. And, again, just removing that polarization. People have assumptions, unfortunately, when they hear Turning Point, which is a shame. But we've had experiences where students who are very oppositional, and I'll give a brief example. UMass Amherst is a great one. My chapter vice president and I, we were tabling one night, and we made the move to stay out a little later than we should have, and it got dark. We had 3 individuals approach our table, and they identified this. I did not make this assumption. They identified themselves as anarchists. And they attacked us right there on the, verbally, of course, but saying vulgar things to my vice president about us and what they assumed we represent. One of the individuals referred to us as the scum at the bottom of their pond on campus, which was humorous, don't get me wrong, but we talked with them for over 45 minutes. And they ended up apologizing to us.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, my.
They said, we made assumptions coming up to your table. And I think when you go to areas where there's going to be that type of viewpoint and actually have a conversation and change the view, that makes a tremendous impact. So areas like Boston, Worcester, Springfield,
The cities.
we want to be there because that's the way you're going to effectuate change. And you're going to have the ones who are they're closed-minded. Their views are their own, and they're not going to change that way. But we want to see success in those areas because that's how this movement continues to grow.
There was an article in the Sentinel. Actually, it was the January 1st editorial in the Sentinel, our local newspaper that I shared with you, and it talked about some surveys and things like this being done. What are the number 1, 2, 3 issues that students want to talk about? The article was a little surprising that it went on to say that some of the things we might think they want to talk about or concerning weren't that high on the list.
Yeah, so, and with that too, every campus is different. Not all of them are the same. So all of my chapters, I like to tell them, make your chapter unique. Focus on the things you want to focus on topic-wise, because there are some would be interesting to cover on a campus, but the most we've seen, at least uniformly, is the Israel-Palestinian conflict right now. Abortion is another one that you'd be, I wouldn't say surprised, but is another factor on campus that people want to talk about. The 3 anarchists were very adamant about focusing on that topic.
Were they male or female?
So it's 2 females and 1 male.
Okay.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, we're all people. Like, let's just have a conversation. We have to humanize each other instead of looking at each other as opposition. So really, those two are the main ones that I see on a campus.
Yeah.
That's something there's gray area. It's not black and white.
Yeah.
So there are ones where you're going to see more confrontation than actual result.
Yeah, I could see those both being confrontational, but I would think that college-age students, young people preparing to go out into the working world, would be more concerned about, will I have a good paying job when I get out, one that would pay back my student loans? Will
my taxes be too high so I can't afford my student loans?
Right, right. I mean, can I afford gas to put in my car to get to a job? I mean, it shows you in some ways how misguided and misguided young people are. But they're misguided because they're told that they should be concerned more with these topics than with some of the other topics.
Yeah, they're more focused on the social issues of the day rather than your personal aspirations. Where am I going to go from here?
Right.
What is this degree going to get me? What is my liberal arts degree going to get? And that's not to, disparage whoever gets a degree in that, but you need to have these ideas already set. You have to start planning. College is supposed to be 4 years of growth, development for you to retain the information and go forward. And a lot of students nowadays, it seems, and I don't want to label all of them, but that they just do 4 years of having fun.
Yes.
And, oh, hey, this is the issue today on campus that we're going to follow.
It's almost like a rite to passage.
Right.
Versus a training ground to prove yourself when you leave.
Yeah, and I think that's where the institution itself has kind of frayed away from its original purpose over the years. So we want to see more of, proactivity with getting back to that initial level.
Yeah.
So, did the outcome of November's election, because even Massachusetts, the solid blue state that we unfortunately are, saw a +8. It was a little bit more than +8.
Yeah, 8.2 or 8.4
it was 8.2 or 8.8 or something like that growth in votes for Donald Trump, which surprised me quite a bit. But did you see the numbers leading up as a awareness of Turning Point USA's ability to reach out to young people in the colleges?
It's a good question. I would say us having a direct, presence on campuses where chapters are formed allows people to see what we represent, what the conservatives actually represent in society and what we can do. And with that, again, we're not promoting a specific party or candidate, but when this election, it was unique too, because you had two candidates who really each had 4 years in their system, and you saw what they did compared to the promises they made. We always told students, do your own research and make proactive decisions here that you feel is the best candidate to vote for. But our presence there in teaching these values, I feel, is important. And it could have helped, but at the same time, we're just focused on keeping the ideological aspect of it growing.
Do you think the Trump administration is going to help Turning Point to develop even more?
I don't know if the administration would have a direct hand with USA. There could be, who knows, with any sort of cooperation with our political brand, like Action itself being a 501c4.
Well, what I mean by that question is, do you think that people are going to see government actually working, conservative government actually working, and be enticed by that to seek out more growth, to seek out how to get more involved?
Yeah, I would love to see that, and I think that should be what it is, especially if as long as they're working with us and they're coming to the events, they're coming to the meetings and learning.
And Donald Trump was at America Fest.
Yep.
And Charlie Kirk is very visible at all of Trump's events.
Yeah, and that is where the lines can get blurred, in my opinion, at times with, oh, you say you're a conservative group, but you aren't, picking a candidate.
But you are, yeah.
Yeah, and what individuals do personally, who they support personally, I'll advocate for. Hey, good for you. You have every right to do that. But for us, with your question there, definitely can see that, hey, this is what conservatism does. Now you're seeing it in action. If that's what you want to see and be the change, it doesn't have to just be on a college campus here. Let's keep growing together. So, yeah.
Now, as a local Republican City Committee, and, hopefully many will see this show and be interested in your answer, how can we help you? How can we help the high school representative? How can we help Turning Point become more successful in the community efforts?
Yeah, sure.
In the school efforts.
Yeah. So we're always going to continue pushing on campuses to grow. And like I said, we want to mobilize together, not separately. We want to network within our community to work with each other, to keep growing that that ideology itself. But with that, it comes to the point, by networking and doing this, we grow together, and we can also reach people who can be like, oh, wait, I'm part of this Republican Town Committee, or I'm with this group. I have a child at this campus, and we grow that way, and we keep growing, and we can teach those values together.
Now, you had some success. Do you want to talk about this week in Fitchburg?
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to go over to Fitchburg State on Tuesday.
On the coldest day that the world has ever seen.
Yep, so it was, I checked the temperature too. It was 16 degrees, but the wind chill and all that made it feel like 4 degrees. I was outside of that campus for 3 hours, walking around and talking with students. We had over 40 people sign up.
Nice.
Yeah, and look, We're not there to kind of cast a false image of ourselves. No, we're going to come and have a conversation with you.
Have you ever had a school give you pushback?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You mind enlightening us about that?
Yes, it's always fun to see that because you see other groups who are the opposite party or ideology. They have multiple clubs on campus. So a good example, again, is UMass Amherst, just where they're located. It's just completely opposite.
The bastion of liberalism and progressivism.
I call them the dirty hippie liberals out there, but go ahead.
Yeah, so they have multiple clubs that are socialist-based and communist-based. I believe they have an economics club there that's based entirely on communism.
Oh, that's great.
So with our Turning Point USA group on campus, there has been a lot of issues, let's say, with getting the group officially recognized by the school. And it's interesting because it makes you wonder, did those other groups that think differently than us have any problem getting a club started? And we don't want to be on the same page as any sort of, opposition there being that we don't play a victim game here. We're going to keep working. If there's a wall in our way, we're going to break through it because we're going to get over adversity every time. But there are campuses that do that. Worcester, we have a couple right now that are being interesting, but we're going to work within the school. We want to be diplomatic because unfortunately in New England, with these liberal schools, they look at us and they're waiting for one slip up, just so they can tell everyone else and their students, this is the one reason we told you they shouldn't be on our campus. So we're going to be diplomatic, and we're going to show you that these values belong here and that we can grow with them.
Yeah. It's all very interesting. What about Trump specifically? I know you said that you have problems with a lot of that Turning Point being involved with Trump. We just, in our last seconds, what are the students interested in Turning Point because they want to know more about Turning Point, or is some of the interest because of Trump and this sort of larger-than-life movement that's happening with Donald Trump himself?
That's an interesting question. I'm going to go with it's Turning Point.
It's Turning Point.
Yeah, I think the success we've had and our grassroots approach here on campuses throughout the country, it's continuing to make an impact. And more students, especially out here now, they're not afraid to say it. And I know earlier I'd made the point that some are, but I think because we're having more and more success and that we're coming to campus and having a higher presence rather than, oh, we might start it. No, we're coming to your campus, we're starting it.
Yeah.
I think that attributes to more people waking up and seeing that we can continue to do this, and it's going to impact your community and what you do with your life outside of the school.
I like that answer, actually, because we all know Donald Trump will leave office in 4 years, but Turning Point won't.
Exactly.
So the movement is more important than the person. Anthony, thank you so much for joining Andrew and I at Your Right to Know. And we thank you for watching Your Right to Know and joining with us at the Fitchburg Republican City Committee and another one of our shows. We always hope to educate and inform our viewers of trends, of ideas, of thoughts and processes. We really encourage you to consider joining your local Republican city or town committee, because we believe that your local and town committee is your only grassroots organization that's going to hold dear your constitutional rights, your liberty and your freedom, and your conservative values. We encourage you to maybe join us. We always meet the second Thursday of every month at Zita's Pizza at 7 o'clock. And what you will find is, to us, the GOP stands for growth, opportunity, and prosperity for all people. And we always stand for freedom. Thank you and good night.
Reflects our values, that preserves our rights, and goes forth in power and might. That reflects our values and preserves our rights, and goes forth